Thank you. So, a couple different things. How much time, in terms of thinking, right? I don't want to be thinking all the time.
Well,
but I want to be manifesting.
Well, you are thinking all the time. If you're awake, you are thinking. There are thoughts going on. You are thinking. Sometimes your thoughts have more momentum than others, but key is to be in the satisfied and better feeling edge of the equation. We'll hear your question fully.
Well, that's really what I want to do, is have that dialogue in terms of understanding, there's sometimes, for example, I had something with the airlines, this special status for many years, and then I lost it. And I wanted to get it back. And so then I'm thinking, what do I need to think about to bring that back? Or what is it that I need to stop thinking about? Or, I get so sometimes in my head about things as opposed to just...
Well, maybe this will make it easy for you to hear. Step 1 is ask, and step 2 is source answers, and step 3 is let it in. When you ask for something, it is implied that you are not currently in manifested possession of this thing that you're asking for. So you're focused upon something that you want that you do not have. That's why we call it step 1. You ask for it, and you're not in the receiving mode while you're asking. And then you ask for it, and you're not in the receiving mode while you're asking. And then you ask for it, and then you're not in the receiving mode while you're asking. And you ask for it, and you're not in the receiving mode while you're asking. And you ask for it, and you're not in the receiving mode when you're asking. And you ask for it, and you're not in the receiving mode while you're asking. And you ask for it, and you're not in the receiving mode while you're asking. And you're asking, and then you're taking score about where it is, and you notice that it hasn't come yet. And so now you're asking, why hasn't it come yet? And you're not in the receiving mode. And so you just can't hold yourself perpetually in step 1. You sort of have to give it up. At some point, you have to say, I have asked, now maybe I'll get on with life a little bit and see what turns up. You see what we're getting at? Step 1 is a different vibration than step 3. Step 3 is letting in what you've asked for. Step 1 is noticing all of the reasons that you want to launch the rocket, or that you are launching the rocket, but it's a different vibrational frequency.
So then in between, I have to have a kind of a step of surrender. So I want something, and then I have to surrender whatever the energy. You could call
it a step of surrender, and those are good words, but here's an easier way to look at it. Why not call it a step of perpetually looking for satisfying subjects? In other words, we really want you to feel the story of the car going down into the San Francisco Bay. This is what this is about. On this emotional scale, which indicates your degree of resistance or allowing, there is despair all the way at the most resistant end, fear and despair and regret and blame and hatred and revenge and anger and all of those things. And at the other end, there's love and appreciation and ecstasy and that feeling of passion. But in the center of the scale is contentment or satisfaction. So where that creative control is, where that energetic vibrational control is, it's right there, satisfied or not, satisfied or not. And that's where most of your life is being lived, in the realm of that, where you could choose that, except you have these hot buttons which take you immediately over there. And so if you are asking for something, and you ask, and then you say, I'm going to surrender. Well, surrendering means stop thought, which means if you're going to really surrender, then get into a meditative state. But we don't want you to be in a meditative state more than about 20 minutes a day. We want you to be in a awake state, in control of your vibration, which means look for satisfying things, of which there are so many. And the more time you spend looking for a reason to be satisfied, then the more law of attraction brings you more rivers and streams of things that are satisfying, so that you dwell mostly in that satisfaction and better feeling emotion. Well, that's not surrendering, but it's not resistance either. So when you're dwelling mostly in this, I'm satisfied about life, I love that, I'm so satisfied. Esther spent an afternoon one day for a couple of hours making lists of things that she has identified, because she wanted to isolate the feeling within herself, that were really satisfying in nature. And she talked about that feeling of getting out onto the open road, and that first feeling of moving out on the highway for a day's drive, and the anticipation of what that day was going to bring. Now, that feeling of utter satisfaction, of supreme satisfaction, did not last all day long, but she remembers feeling it nearly every time that she pulled out onto the roadway. in the monster bus with the tow car in tow. That feeling of excellence of the vehicle and adventure of her life and happiness of her life, she isolated it. She focuses on slipping into a lovely seat in a lovely restaurant with lovely people and identifying the beauty of the place and the niceness of the people who are working there and the fragrance of the food in the air and how a little bit of focus there. And she will say, well, I'll tell you right now, I'm going to be very happy here. I'm so satisfied. Or slipping into an airline seat and putting her pillow behind her neck and getting really comfortable and acknowledging how satisfied she is. You have to identify and isolate that feeling. And once you do that and get good at that, then what happens is not only do you have more and more of those kinds of moments in time, but you establish a point of attraction that makes that mostly what flows through that path of least resistance to you. So it just gets easier and easier and easier. Well, of course, things are going to happen. Somebody is going to bump your car, or your flight might be canceled, or life comes at you. The question is, how stable are you standing as they come? And how deep is your basis of satisfaction? How quickly are you able to put things into perspective? You have an earth that spins in its orbit every single day in perfect proximity to other planets in ways that we can't even begin to describe, and for reasons that you couldn't understand if we did describe it. That would need to be the only thing that you focus on that would give you reason, substantial, validated reason to feel satisfaction, and yet it's not something that comes up in your mind very often. Somebody bumped my car. Well, the earth is still spinning in its orbit. That's usually not where you go, but you could look at the overview of your life experience, and you could acknowledge the well-being that is dominant. No matter what's going on, well-being is dominant. But as you isolate thoughts and you isolate things that don't feel good to you, we love you so much, but more humans isolate dissatisfaction and practice the feeling of it than isolate satisfaction and practice the feeling of it. And here's something that we really want you to know. You've been listening to us for a while, been reading and hearing some processes that we've offered. And we've offered processes to help you move up the emotional scale. So from despair into something that feels more like revenge, because revenge really is less resistant than despair. There's more control. You feel more control in revenge than you do in despair. Do you know that? Now, we don't recommend you stay there very long, because if you take action while you're still hanging around there, it's going to get a whole lot worse. But there is relief. Each piece of resistance that you let go of, you feel more and more and more and more relief. We want you to consider crossing the emotional scale fulcrum from I'm feeling relief, I'm feeling relief, I'm feeling relief, into slipping into satisfaction. We want you to just notice, if you can, the difference in letting go of relief and having no resistance. Letting go of resistance into relief and having no resistance. Can you feel the difference? It's fine-tuning, but once you get there where you're looking for satisfaction, life becomes so simple, because at this stage it's so easy to accomplish. And this is what we want you to hear. When you move into satisfaction where there's no resistance, what do you know from your physics lessons? What do you know about your car with the brake off and out of gear rolling down a hill? It's gonna go. It's gonna gather momentum. It's gonna go, and it's gonna go fast. So we want you to feel how fast you can go from satisfaction into love, satisfaction into exhilaration, satisfaction into ecstasy, satisfaction into that fantastic feeling of passion. It goes so fast. You will not practice satisfaction and hang around in complacency, because your absence of resistance will not allow it under the universal law of attraction. You get that? Mm-hmm. So once you cross over there, once you practice it, that's your work. That's your work. Don't take some big issue that you've been carrying around for a long time, that a lot of people are beating the same drum of, and make that what you're deciding to release all resistance on. Just let it be the little things that are easy to find satisfaction about. Because if you find 20 or 30 or 40 or 100 things in a day that you feel satisfaction about, you've got momentum going. And then before you know it, more and more and more and more and more of what's in your vortex will be flowing into your experience So you have big, big, big reasons to feel satisfaction. You'll pick the winning lottery ticket. You'll round the corner when the love of your life is rounding the same corner. You'll be moving through life where the things that you've been asking for will obviously appear in your experience. You'll get to witness the unfolding of manifestations that will thrill you. In other words, this is big stuff that we're talking about, but little tools that are necessary in order to get there. There is so much leverage in alignment. So much.
Can you share with us something to say when to people who are curious about what you're doing and where you've been? Because I remove myself a lot of times from that, and I will pick the pile and I'll spend my time focused there. And then if I share with certain people about it, it seems like there's split energy there. But any little dialogue that you can share to someone?
Well, it's not so much what we would say. We will give you some words. It's not what we would say. It's the timing of when we say it. Because if you're under the influence of source and they're not going to hear you anyway. In the same way that you tuned them out, they'll tune you out. They'll see your lips moving, but they won't understand anything that you're saying. This thing works in either case, doesn't it? So if someone is asking and you can feel that you are in the vibrational vicinity of one another, then it's a wonderful thing to talk about how good it is to feel good, and how much better you feel the better you feel, and how you're getting good at sifting and sorting and focusing on things that allow benefits to come to you. What upliftment is really is demonstrating through the clarity of your example how the laws of the universe work. And everyone is demonstrating that because no one is outside of it. No one is an exception to it. But when you're doing it on purpose and getting the results that you intend, and then others get to witness you getting the results that you intend, and then they want to know how it is that you get the results that you intend, it's a wonderful thing when you say, well, I've discovered that how I feel is a big part of all of this. And I've learned to guide my thoughts to more and more satisfying things. And at first it was difficult, but it gets easier and easier. And if you want to tell them about law of attraction, that would be extremely helpful to them. If you want to tell them about their own guidance system, that's extremely helpful to them. If you want to talk about the laws of the universe as you know them to be, that's extremely helpful to them. You just have to know. Esther sometimes will be sitting next to someone on an airplane or somewhere who really wants to know what makes her tick. And she gives them as much as she can feel they are able to hear. Because there are so many ways of describing this. And then as she hears back from them more things that makes her understand that they've already got that, sometimes they just get nose to nose in this very satisfying philosophical conversation about how everything works. And sometimes they keep it light. And mostly they don't talk at all.